All right, we're going to talk about the Hanford Carnegie Museum in this segment. My guests are Patricia Dickerson, who is the curator of the museum, and Rob Van Wagoner, the director. And there's an event coming up this weekend. It's an Asian tea and cuisine sampling, which sounds delicious. We'll talk about that in a bit. But first, which one of you wants to give me the history of the museum?
Well, I guess I will, since...
I honestly haven't. I wasn't aware of this museum in Hanford.
Let me tell you, about 50% of the people who live in Hanford don't know it's a museum.
Well, let's take care of that today.
Some think it's a church. Some don't know what it is. Those who know it's a museum have never been in it, but yet they lived in Hanford for 60 years.
Wow. And it's right on 8th Street, you told me, near Courthouse Park, not far from Superior Dairy.
Walk down the street.
So you can walk to all. From the dairy.
What a lot of people do, they take Amtrak down from Fresno, which makes a good day trip. They visit us. They then go to the Tao Temple, which is the Chinese temple that's down the street from us. And from there, they go to the Art Center. And after that, it's time for ice cream. When you finish ice cream, it's about time to walk back up to the train station and come back to Fresno.
Yeah. So you can make a little day trip out of it if you're
coming from
Fresno.
Fresno and also Bakersfield do it.
So you told me this is a history museum, the history of Hanford?
Hanford and Kings County.
And Kings County, yeah.
We have a lot of different aspects, everything from the startup of the county splitting from Tulare and Fresno counties and some of the hijinks that went on along with that. We also have things on Mussel, Slough, Massacre, which was one of the topics between the railroad and the farmers in the late 1890s.
Wait a minute, the Mussel Slough Massacre?
Massacre.
That sounds sounds violent.
It was. It was a dispute over cost of land by the railroad. The railroad brought all these people in to farm the area to develop it. They never set a price on what the property should be sold for. Going rate at that time was 50 cents an acre, believe it or not. When the farmers kept asking and asking, and they just never would say, and finally they came to them and said that it's between $3 and $4 an acre. Well, the farmers took exception to that because of the fact that they had developed the land, not the railroad, but the railroad stuck to that, and talking back and forth and kind of escalated. And one day the railroad just said, we're tired of this, and so they brought down some U.S. Marshals and some of their own detectives, or hitmen, whichever you want to call them, and they started foreclosing on the property. Well, word got around to the farmers, who at that day were having a picnic at Mussel Slough, and they went out to confront the railroad. Well, one thing led to another, and all of a sudden shots were fired, and 3 of the farmers got killed, a couple of the people from the railroad, and a U.S. Marshal.
Wow.
And it made big headlines in those days because of what had happened and so forth, and it was outraged in Washington and so forth. But the fact is, the railroad had enough power behind them that nothing was ever done about it, and so the people still had to pay that $3 or $4 an acre for the land, or they got evicted.
So what do you have at the museum from that? Is it the old newspapers? Or?
We have documents. We have 2 of the guns that was used in it. We have a piece, believe it or not, of the tree where the fighting started in Mussel Slough, and we have a lot of other documents going back and forth between the railroad and the farmers.
Yeah. And of course pictures.
Black and whites, I'm imagining.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Who started putting all this together to make it into a museum?
It was a group of people did it, but probably the person who spearheaded it the most was Dan Humison, who owns the Fox Theater. He was the one that put together the petition and got the people going, and afterward he was the one who actually spearheaded the getting the inside rehab, so it went from a library to a museum. Also in getting a lot of the initial artifacts for it. We're very different than a lot of museums. We have paid for nothing in the museum. It's all been donated by people who have either lived in Hanford, their families have lived in Hanford, and so forth. And every day we seem to get more and more interesting pieces from people who, as their parents or grandparents have passed away, they see that they have this thing and know it's kind of important to the history, and they bring it down and ask us if we would like to have it. And some pieces we accept, and some pieces, we just have more than enough of, so we have to kind of just thank them for their interest and, let them go on their way, unfortunately.
Are you running out of exhibit space?
Yes.
Yeah?
Oh, yes, yes. We have run out. What we do is we rotate a lot of the exhibits. Or we add to them or take something away so they stay fresh. We want to keep things that are fresh in there. A couple of them that are mainstays, like the Mussel Slough Massacre. Also, there's one on Old Tulare Lake, as well as we have one on Amelia, Earhart. That's also one of our mainstays. And we have an extremely large military collection from World Wars I and World War II.
Yeah, I was surprised to learn, chatting with you before we went on, that Amelia Earhart had a connection to the Central Valley.
Yes, interesting connection. She used to fly out of Chandler Airport with a lady named Mary Packwood. The two of them became friends. Mary lived in Hanford, and her father at that time was the president of the Bank of Italy, or now the Bank of America. And the building still stands on 7th and Irwin Street. And they got to know each other pretty well, and Amelia liked to come down to Hanford to the Civic Auditorium because they used to have big-name entertainment similar to what the Fox has now, with the same genre as now. And on one of the occasions, she gave a dress to Mary to wear. Amelia, only besides being a flyer, also was a dress designer as well. And the dress was a little too small for Mary. Mary was tall and slender, and Amelia was a little on the stocky side. So she had it altered so that she could wear it. And while she was having it altered, Amelia went on her trip around the world that ended somewhere in the Pacific Ocean. And so Mary decided that she would give the dress back to the people and to the family, and the family said no to keep the dress. And through the years, her having it and so forth, she finally donated it to us.
So you have that on display?
We have it on display, and it'll be in the fall, and I don't know the exact date yet. Chandler Airport is having a fly-in at that time, and they also are having an airplane that was an exact replica of the plane that Amelia was lost at sea in.
So the dress will be at Chandler for that event?
Be there a lot, and we have some other artifacts. We have the little suitcase that Amelia brought the dress down in, and some other artifacts from Amelia as well that go up with it.
Okay. All right. Tell me about the event this weekend, Saturday from 1 to 4. It's an Asian tea and cuisine sampling.
Yes.
What's it going to be?
We have a few restaurants that are donating dishes to us, and the people will be able to sample the different Japanese, Chinese.
Some Vietnamese and Indonesian.
Yes.
And
everything.
A little bit of everything.
Everything.
Yeah. And fundraiser for the museum,
It
obviously?
is.
Yeah.
And the teas are coming from LT Sioux Tea Company, which is down where the temple is, Tao Temple is. And we paired them so that these teas also pair well with the different cuisines that we're having.
Oh, okay.
And this event will take place inside the museum. Normally, we have events in our courtyard, but this one's inside.
Okay. So tickets are available, what, online or just at the museum?
At the museum, or they can call them and buy a credit card. And we do have an online presence as well as Facebook that we have. Most of our events are publicized on that, and news of the museum and so forth.
Okay. I'm sure if people Google the Hanford Carnegie Museum,
It comes right up.
it'll pop up, right? Hey, when's the Hanford Fox supposed to reopen?
Danny Humison was there. They've already got an act booked, and I think it's March or first.
Coming
of
up,
April. It's
right?
coming,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's been closed for a while.
Yeah, the ceiling's done. Everything is pretty much done. It's just a little finishing work here
I bet
and there.
Hanford is looking forward to that
Boy,
place
are we,
reopening.
are we.
Yeah. All right. Well, Patricia Dickerson and Rob Van Wagoner from the Hanford Carnegie Museum, thank you so much for being with us today. Anything you want to add before we go?
No, we just like people to come down and visit us. We have a tremendous amount of history to show, and people know nowadays that the schools don't teach as much history as they used to, especially local history, and we can kind of show them what their roots were and bits and pieces about them.
Yeah.
The history.
If you're in Fresno, hop on the Amtrak and you'll be there in no time flat. All right, thank you so much. The Hanford Carnegie Museum, right here on Central Valley Talk.